Companies depend on suppliers every single day. Raw materials, components, and services all come from suppliers. But what happens when suppliers fail to deliver? This is where supplier based risk begins.
In supply chain management, the buyer is always at the center. However, the buyer is surrounded by different types of risks coming from supplier, markets, and the external environment. Understanding these risks help companies reduce delays, control costs, and maintain smooth operations. These risks can appear suddenly and may disrupt production, transportation, or inventory availability. If risks are not identified and managed early, even small problems can turn into major supply chain disruptions. That is why companies today focus more on understanding and managing supply base risks.
Supplier risk comes directly from the supplier's performance. It includes late deliveries, poor quality, low production capacity, or unreliable communication. When a supplier fails to meet its commitments, the buyer is affected immediately through delays and operational disruptions.
Operational risk is related to problems inside the supplier's operations. These problems include machine breakdowns, labor shortages, inefficient processes, or poor production planning. Even if supplier is financially stable, operational failures can still delay production and distribute the buyer's supply chain. Financial risk occurs when supplier faces financial difficulties such as cash flow problems, high debt, or the risk of bankruptcy. A financially unstable supplier may struggle to buy raw materials, pay workers, or continue normal operations. This can lead to production delays or even a complete stoppage, directly affecting the buyer. In many cases, the buyer receives little or no warning before the supplier fails. As a result, companies are focused to find alternative suppliers quickly, usually at higher costs and with longer lead times. For this reason, monitoring supplier financial health is essential for reducing supply base risk.
Sourcing risk is related to supplier selection decisions. This risk increases when a buyer depends on a single supplier or a limited number of sources. If that supplier fails, the buyer has very few alternatives, making the supply chain highly vulnerable.
Demand and capacity risk occurs when supplier capacity does not match market demand. Sudden increases in demand or limited production capacity can prevent suppliers from meeting buyer requirements. This risk often leads to shortages, long lead times, and increased pressure on the supply chain. Market risk is caused by change in market conditions such as price fluctuations and demand uncertainty. Political risk comes from government regulations, trade restrictions, tariffs, or political instability. These risks come from outside the supplier chain, but they strongly affect supplier and buyer worldwide.
In summary, supply based risk includes supplier risk, financial risk, sourcing risk, market risk, and political risk. All these risks surround the buyer and can disrupt supply chain performance. Understanding these categories helps companies build stronger and more resilient supply chains.